Subject became psychotic after approximately 174 days of continuous LSD administration. The memo is dated January 27, 1955. It's stamped secret. The subject's name is redacted in thick black ink. The location is redacted. The attending physician's signature is barely legible, but one line is crystal clear. The purpose of this experiment is to investigate the potential of LSD-2/5 for controlling human behavior. It was 3 a.m. on November 28, 1953, in room 1018A of the Statler Hotel at 2 Park Avenue in New York City. Outside, Manhattan was quiet, rain slicking the pavement. Inside, a 43-year-old Army biochemist named Dr. Frank Olson plunged 13 stories to his death. Police ruled it a suicide. The CIA called it an unfortunate tragedy. The Olson family would later call it murder. And at the center of it all was a code name that would not become public until 1975. Project MKUltra. The stakes were global. In the early 1950s, the United States was gripped by Cold War paranoia. The Korean War had ended in July 1953. American prisoners of war returned home giving confessions that sounded scripted, denouncing capitalism, praising communism. Newspapers screamed brainwashing. The term itself had entered English in 1950, coined by journalist Edward Hunter. In Washington, D.C., at CIA headquarters located today at 38.9517 degree N, 77.1467 degree W in Langley, Virginia, officials feared something unprecedented. What if the Soviets had cracked the code of the human mind? On April 13, 1953, CIA Director Allen Dulles approved a program proposed by Dr. Sidney Gottlieb, chief of the CIA's Technical Services staff. The authorization memo was brief. The project name, MKUltra. The objective, to research and develop chemical, biological, and radiological materials capable of controlling human behavior. It was classified at the highest levels, and it would remain buried for more than 2 decades. MKUltra was not a single experiment. It was a sprawling network of 149 subprojects funded through front organizations, universities, hospitals, and prisons across the United States and Canada. The official CIA document authorizing it, later declassified under CIA FOIA electronic reading room records, was signed April 13, 1953. The budget? Approximately $300,000 in its first year. Millions more would follow. Dr. Sidney Gottlieb, born August 3, 1918, was not a cartoon villain. He had a PhD in biochemistry from Caltech. He spoke softly. He raised goats on a farm in Virginia. But under his direction, the CIA began testing LSD, mescaline, psilocybin, barbiturates, amphetamines, and other psychoactive substances on unwitting subjects. One of the earliest documented incidents occurred in November 1953 at a CIA retreat at Deep Creek Lake, Maryland. Dr. Frank Olson was part of the Army's Special Operations Division at Fort Detrick in Frederick, Maryland, coordinates approximately 39.4143 degree N, 77.4105 degree W. He had worked on biological warfare research. At that retreat, Olson and several colleagues were secretly dosed with LSD without their knowledge. Within days, Olson experienced severe psychological distress. He spoke of moral guilt about his work. He seemed paranoid. On November 28, 1953, he fell, or was pushed, from the 13th floor of the Statler Hotel. The CIA concealed the LSD dosing from his family for 22 years. In 1975, during President Gerald Ford's administration, the Rockefeller Commission revealed that Olson had been part of an LSD experiment. The case would be reopened decades later. In 1994, Olson's body was exhumed. Forensic pathologist Dr. James Starrs found evidence of a possible blunt force injury to Olson's skull prior to the fall. To this day, the official cause of death remains disputed. But Olson was only one name. In Montreal, Canada, at the Allen Memorial Institute, located at 1025 Pine Avenue West in Montreal, Quebec, psychiatrist Dr. Donald Ewan Cameron conducted CIA-funded experiments between 1957 and 1964. Cameron believed he could de-pattern patients, erase their personalities, and rebuild them. Using a combination of LSD, electroconvulsive therapy, sensory deprivation, and something he called psychic driving, patients were subjected to recorded messages played on loop for hours, sometimes days. Many of these patients had checked into the hospital for minor issues, postpartum depression, anxiety. They left unable to remember their own children's names. The CIA funded Cameron's work through a front organization called the Society for the Investigation of Human Ecology. Most patients never knew they were part of an intelligence program. In San Francisco, during the early 1960s, the CIA launched Operation Midnight Climax. Safe houses were established in apartments at 225 Chestnut Street in the Telegraph Hill neighborhood. CIA operatives hired sex workers to lure men inside. Drinks were spiked with LSD. The encounters were recorded behind two-way mirrors. The purpose was to study how LSD affected sexual vulnerability and whether secrets could be extracted. It sounds like fiction, but it is documented in declassified CIA files released in 1977 after a Freedom of Information Act request by journalist John Marks. The atmosphere inside those safe houses was almost theatrical. Red lights, cigarette smoke, jazz playing softly while a man unknowingly descended into chemically induced paranoia. The CIA called it research. The subjects called it a nightmare. If they ever learned what had happened, psychologically, MKUltra was driven by fear. The CIA believed the Soviets and Chinese had mastered mind control techniques. Reports from the Korean War suggested American POWs had been subjected to psychological manipulation. Allen Dulles himself gave a speech in 1953 warning of brain warfare. In response, the agency embraced the idea that the human mind was a battlefield. If enemies could control thoughts, then America needed to do it first, so they experimented. On prisoners at federal penitentiaries in Atlanta, Georgia. On patients at Lexington Narcotics Hospital in Kentucky. On military personnel. On civilians who volunteered for what they believed were harmless studies. Some subjects were dosed with LSD for 77 consecutive days. Others were placed in sensory deprivation tanks for extended periods. Subproject 68 focused on hypnosis. Subproject 130 explored toxins capable of inducing amnesia. By the late 1960s, MKUltra had metastasized into a bureaucratic monster. Then, in 1973, as the Watergate scandal consumed Washington, CIA Director Richard Helms ordered the destruction of MKUltra files. On January 30th, 1973, Helms instructed that all documents related to MKUltra be destroyed. Most were shredded, but not all. In 1977, approximately 20,000 financial documents were discovered in a CIA budget archive. These surviving records became the foundation for Senate hearings led by Senator Frank Church in 1975 and later investigations by Senator Ted Kennedy. The Church Committee revealed that the CIA had conducted experiments on unwitting Americans. Public outrage followed. President Ford issued Executive Order 1190, 5 in 1976, banning certain forms of experimentation without informed consent. But the climax of MKUltra isn't just the revelation of drug tests. It's the realization that for 2 decades, the US government secretly manipulated its own citizens in pursuit of psychological dominance. No public vote. No judicial oversight. Just classified memos and covert funding. Sidney Gottlieb retired in 1972. He was never criminally charged. He died on March 7, 1999, at age 80. Allen Dulles had died earlier, on January 29, 1969. Many key figures lived out their lives quietly. Victims received limited settlements. In 1976, President Ford personally apologized to the Olsen family at the White House. A $750,000 settlement was granted. But apologies cannot restore memory. They cannot erase trauma. The aftermath of MKUltra still lingers in American culture. Conspiracy theories about mind control persist because the foundation is real. The CIA did attempt to manipulate consciousness. The agency did fund experiments without consent. The government did destroy evidence. Today, the CIA headquarters in Langley stands as a symbol of national security. The Allen Memorial Institute still operates as part of McGill University Health Center. The Statler Hotel, where Frank Olson fell, is now the Hotel Pennsylvania's former site, demolished in 2023. Time moves on. Buildings are renovated. Directors change. But the documents remain archived under FOIA case numbers and Senate report volumes. The dark truth is not that the CIA created perfect mind control. They didn't. LSD proved unpredictable. Hypnosis unreliable. Behavioral manipulation far less controllable than imagined. The real horror is that they tried. They believed the ends justified the means. They believed that in a world divided by nuclear weapons and ideological warfare, ethics were expendable. MKOFGT, IMC, the EEEC. Find it AEEE. The FGEO FGBZLA was born from fear, but fear does not excuse what happened in those rooms. When the government experiments on its own people without consent, something fundamental fractures: trust. And once trust is broken, it does not fully return. Project MKUltra officially ended in 1973, but the question it raises remains chilling. If a program of this magnitude could operate for 20 years in secret, what else could? The final memo in the recovered files does not contain a dramatic confession, just budget lines, invoices, reimbursements, cold numbers documenting very human suffering. Frank Olson's fall at 3 a.m. patients in Montreal listening to the same sentence repeated 500,000 times. Men in San Francisco waking up unsure of what was real. Project MKUltra was not science fiction. It was signed, funded, approved, and hidden. The mind was the battlefield. And for 2 decades, the war was fought in silence.